Okay, so Sonic Frontiers Update 3 has been officially released, and I have some mixed feelings about it. Now, for the past couple hours, I've been playing this update from beginning to end, so this video will contain a spoiler-free section as well as a spoiler review. So if you haven't played the update yet, then you can watch my spoiler-free section and then come back later whenever you've finished it. And for all the people who don't want to watch everything I have to say in this video, I will place out some timestamps for you to click through to see my thoughts on specific parts of the update. This is an unscripted video, so I might go on some ramblings every once in a while, but I did write down some notes for specific topics I want to touch on, and those topics will be in the timestamp, so feel free to skip to wherever you want to. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe with the bell, and with that said, let's get into the spoiler-free review. Whoa, it's Matt from the future after he got done recording this video. I wanted to clarify right off the bat that I might be a bit harsh on this update, but don't take it personally. I don't hate this update, it is a free update, so at the end of the day, I'm not mad at Sega for making this. I didn't pay for it, so I don't really lose anything from not liking this update, so don't take this so seriously. Anyways, let the video continue. So, I'm not gonna go too in-depth with my thoughts because obviously this is the spoiler-free section of the video, but I will say that regardless of what I say, you should experience this update for yourself if you are a Sonic fan. Obviously, as Sonic fans, we all have very diverse opinions. We all can disagree or agree on a topic, so everyone should experience this themselves and come to their own opinions. Me personally, I'm just gonna rip the band-aid off. I did not like this update at all. I know some people will be mad at me because negativity is not praised much in the Sonic community, but I can't fake how I feel about this update. And how I feel is that it was very underwhelming. In fact, it was kind of bad. Speaking generally without spoiling the update, this update is a massive overhaul to the ending of Sonic Frontiers. And as we all know, if you've played Sonic Frontiers, the ending kind of lacked something. The final island was a bit underwhelming because it was just another Kronos island that was kind of more challenging, and it just lacked the climactic finish that we all wanted from the game. This update's main goal is to give us a better ending that is much more climactic and rewarding. If you have a completed save file, you can actually access all of the content and the new ending from that save file. You just go in the completed save file, go on Kronos Island, and there should be like a little marker on the map that looks a little bit strange. Go to that, and then you can start the new campaign and the new story mode that comes with this update. Aside from that, it's a pretty lengthy campaign, so you're probably not going to be able to do it in one sitting. I personally did because I don't have a good reason. I just wanted to make this video, so you know, I don't have a good reason, but I did it in one sitting, and I kind of want to go to sleep right now. It's about 4:32 a.m., so yeah, let me record this video real quick. Let's begin the spoilers discussion. Let's start talking about all the juicy stuff and my thoughts and why I'm not a fan of this update. I think a good starting place is to talk about the story because we did get a new story with this update. And personally, how I feel about this story is that it's kinda alright. It's not gonna blow your socks off, it's nothing crazy, but it's nothing overly offensive either. But I will praise one thing, and it's that they actually fixed Sage's character. If you guys don't know, in the original ending for Sonic Frontiers, Sage survived at the end, like she was brought back to life by Eggman. And the weird thing about that is that it's kind of implied that Sage starts working with Eggman again after the events of Sonic Frontiers. But that never made sense because the original ending portrayed Sage as a good character. She wasn't a villain. So why would she help Eggman if she wasn't a villain, if she didn't agree with his morals? Well, that's actually explained in this update. In one of the first cutscenes you see, she actually drops a line that she wants to help Eggman further his world domination after the events of Sonic Frontiers, so that kind of gives that wrapping that, yes, she does value humanity, but she also wants to conquer the world, so she's also a menace. She's not a good person. She is a villain, and that's made a lot more clear in this ending, which I appreciate a lot. So that is a W for the story. But besides that, I think that about covers everything in regards to story, so let's move on to what you guys are probably waiting for, being the playable characters. How good are the playable characters? Are they amazing? Do they suck? Well, what's the deal? Well, in my personal opinion, I think it's a bit of a mixed bag. Let's start off with Amy. Amy is clearly, in my opinion, the best playable character. She is the most polished, she is the most fun to control, and I just have less complaints about Amy overall. One thing that did catch me off guard is when I first started playing, I thought Amy was terrible because I was like, wow, all she has is this like glide move, but what I didn't know is that there's actually skill trees for all of the playable characters. If I remember correctly, I don't even think the game tells you that the playable characters have skill trees, which was a little bit weird. I straight up thought Amy was just a garbage character for like 10 minutes while playing until I found a skill tree. And when I found the skill tree and I was able to upgrade her abilities, that's when I realized that, oh, Amy's a pretty good playable character. She's pretty fun to mess around with, and I'd say that Amy is a W. I will say that when she's gliding, her turning radius is a little bit weird and wonky. I also think she's a bit overpowered in her jumps, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I would rather a playable character's controls feel overpowered than feeling like garbage. And speaking of garbage, let's talk about Knuckles. Now, I'm not gonna diss Knuckles too much because at the end of the day, it is free content, and, you know, Knuckles as a playable character does not take anything away from the game. Knuckles is only adding to the game, so I feel like it'd be unfair for me to say he's just a garbage character. However, I will say that they did not handle Knuckles well at all. The climbing isn't bad, it's just weird, especially when you consider the fact that Knuckles can only climb on these red blocks. As far as I know, he can't climb up any other structures, it's just these red walls. And as an adventure fan, that feels kind of weird because in the adventure games, you could climb on anything with Knuckles. But in this game, you can only climb on specific walls. And look, I get that's kind of necessary because if they allowed Knuckles to climb up anything, then most of the platforming challenges would be nothing. So I do understand why they made this decision, it just doesn't make it any less jarring. Okay, but the biggest issue with Knuckles is actually the gliding. The gliding is horrendous. It is atrocious. How did this ever get past playtesting? Like, honestly, like, I hate saying that because I sound pretentious when I say that, but like, who played this and said it was okay? When Knuckles starts gliding, there's a bit of a delay, like he doesn't start gliding right away, there's like a 3-second delay, and then once he starts gliding, the controls are just awful. He turns like a car, like you have to do a whole rotation to actually turn to the left or turn to the right. He is so slippery when he's gliding, and it does not feel fun to control at all. Compare this to the Adventure series, he controls like butter in those games, but in Sonic Frontiers, you're driving a plane, you're driving a car. Again, it's a free playable character, I'm not gonna call it the worst thing ever made, but it's not great either. They could have definitely made it a lot better, which is kind of disappointing in my opinion. And then you got Tails, and in my opinion, Tails is the worst playable character by far. Not only does he have similar issues to Knuckles, where he has a delay when he starts flying, but also he has a terrible turning radius. Granted, the turning radius isn't as bad as Knuckles, but it's not fluent either. But the thing that absolutely kills it for me is the homing attack. For some reason, Tails does not have a homing attack. I don't know why, but he can't homing attack on springs, enemies, nothing. And this is the thing that separates Tails from Knuckles, because with Knuckles, even though I have some issues with Knuckles, I will actively go out of my way to play Knuckles because, you know, I think there is some fun to be had with that playable character. However, with Tails, I actively do not like playing him because I know I can't homing attack. And when you can't homing attack, that's when you realize how imprecise the platforming is in Sonic Frontiers. Platforming without the homing attack slows things down. This is not an issue with the base game because when you play as Sonic, you can just homing attack a spring and just move on. There is no problem with platforming. But with Tails, it's a struggle because you have to rely on your jumping, and yes, there is flight controls, but they're not great at repositioning you. Since the turning radius is kind of awkward and there's that delay before you can actually start flying, a lot of times it's not gonna save you from platforming. In fact, you're probably gonna have to restart all over and just platform all the way back to where you were in that platforming segment. Which happened to me multiple times, and yes, you can say skill issue, and that's probably what it is, but I just don't feel the need to get good with Tails because I already don't like his controls. And that's kind of my problem with Tails, but believe me, I don't like criticizing these playable characters. Besides the final boss, the playable characters are kind of the best part of this update. Alright, and with that said, I think that's about everything for playable characters, so let's get into the platforming. How is the platforming? How is the puzzles? How is all that stuff? This right here is what ruined the update for me, aside from all the unbalanced issues that we'll get into later. I found the platforming to be very tedious and difficult at times. And it's not the good kind of difficult that makes you want to overcome the challenge. It was either really basic or the most random platforming challenges that are very tedious and annoying. To showcase exactly what I'm talking about, there was a part on the first tower where you're supposed to use the spin dash up a slope to platform up. Except the spin dash is so overpowered that it just goes flying. It's just really awkward and doesn't overlap well. And this was a very common reoccurring theme that a creator came to me to ask how to get past this platforming segment. I had to explain to them, you know, you have to spin dash up the slope, but in reality, it's not their fault that they didn't understand how to do that. You are never platforming like that anywhere else in the game until that tower. So some players will rightfully not know how to get past that segment. It gets really bad, especially when we get to the trials, which I'll talk about later on, but there were so many people in my circle of friends who were just sharing information on how to do certain things within the update. Somebody might not know how to platform on this specific section, or somebody might have trouble with a trial, or somebody's having trouble with a boss. There were so many issues of confusion that came up that me and my friend circle had to solve for each other. You know the part where Tails has to go above the pyramid to get the Chaos Emerald? There were 2 creators who did not know how to get up there, and I had to show them where to go to get up to that Chaos Emerald. That happened twice. Twice. Like, this shouldn't be a thing. That you shouldn't struggle trying to do basic platforming that the game wants you to do. But that's such a reoccurring theme where the game just leaves you confused on what you're supposed to do, and this is especially apparent for the trials. And I hate saying that because I don't want to diss the level design, because they did try to get creative with it. On that segment that I talked about where you have to spin dash up the slope, like, that's a creative idea. I like that, but it just wasn't handled correctly. And, you know, with that said, let's get into the objectives of the game. This is the harshest part of the update because it has the most issues. The playable characters' objectives are pretty simple. It's just go here, do that thing, talk to this Coco, grab this Chaos Emerald. You know, it's pretty basic. You do have to go through some platforming challenges to reach Chaos Emeralds or certain Coco to talk to, so, you know, it is pretty cool. The concept isn't bad, but of course the platforming was kind of underwhelming in my opinion. However, the big objective that you tackle as Sonic is the trials. You have to complete 5 trials, which means you have to climb 5 towers and complete 5 tests of strength. And this is so unbalanced that I genuinely believe that there is no way they could have extensively playtested this. Let's start off by saying this: the difficulty of the update is a lot harder than the base difficulty of Sonic Frontiers. This update is challenging, and trust me, my pinpointing the easiest Sonic game video just got outdated. You have the first tower, which again has some weird platforming segments, but it's nothing terrible. You get to the top, and the trial is where you fight a bunch of these enemies. It's nothing too challenging. It's actually kind of fun. Then you go to trial number 2, and I don't even know what they did with this one, bro. You have to kill all 4 of these pedal enemies in 2 minutes. And you're like, well, that's not that bad. Well, guess what? You're at level 1 for damage, so it's gonna take a while, thus making the most tedious and annoying trial in the game. Debatably, some people say Trial 5 is worse, but in my opinion, this one was worse. I took more time on Trial 2 than I did with Trial 5. It is so unbelievably difficult to kill all of these 4 pedal enemies before the time runs out. And I see people being like, oh, it's challenging, wow, so amazing, but it's like, this isn't the good challenge. This isn't the challenge that makes me want to get better. This is the challenge that makes me wonder, how did this get past playtesting? When I think of good challenge, I think of Metroid Dread, bro. I took like 3 hours to beat the Kraid boss. Yes, that is correct. I took 3 hours on that boss, and I'm not ashamed of that. I am a bad video game player, I don't care. But when I beat that boss, I felt rewarded. I felt like every time I died, it was my fault. But in Sonic Frontiers with this dumb second trial, I never felt like it was my fault. The time limit is too strict. It's asking too much from the player. It's just a dumb trial. It makes no sense. It's completely unbalanced. How did it get past playtesting? Like, who played this level and said, yeah, that's a great time limit? That I don't get it. It is so bad that I've had to tell multiple people how to beat this one trial. In fact, I was in a very large Discord call when I was playing through this update, and I am not exaggerating when I say that literally everyone in there, except for one person, was shown how to do it. And I don't even remember the numbers, but there was like 8 people in that Discord call, and all of them had to be shown how to do it because nobody had a clue on how to beat it. For all of the people who are watching who may have not beaten the second trial, I will leave a tutorial in the description made by a fellow creator, Pi Studios. They were in the Discord call that I was in, and they decided to make a tutorial since so many people needed it. So if you want to know how to beat that trial very easily, then just go in the link in the description, watch that tutorial, and you'll get it done. Aside from that, Trial 3 is very easy, and Trial 4 is also very easy. Me trying to understand the balancing of this update is creating pretzels in my brain. I don't understand it, because the 5th trial is very hard as well. For this trial, what you have to do is you have to fight Giganto, Wyvern, and Knight with 400 rings. Your ring counter does not reset, and you have to beat all 3 of these bosses in a row. This is pretty difficult, but the game does give you a perfect parry move when you enter the trial. And if you're wondering what the perfect parry is, it's basically the parry, but you actually have to time it. Probably should have been in there before the boss fight, but you know, it is what it is. Now, if you want a trick on how to beat all 3 of these bosses really fast without any struggle, just follow these movements. Attack, stomp, dodge, stomp, dodge, stomp, and just create a loop of stomping and dodging. If you do that, then you should successfully beat these 3 bosses pretty easily. I highly recommend you do, because if you don't, it's gonna take a very long while. To be honest, Trial 5 was just not that good in my opinion. I didn't struggle with it as much because I knew about the stomping technique very early on, but I still think it's a little stupid. The fact that we have to abuse a mechanic like the stomp in the first place just feels wrong. You know, that brings us to the final boss, and at this point in the update, I was feeling a bit down. I was like, well, this wasn't fun. And again, it's free, so it's not, I'm not like going to be mauling over this. It is what it is. I won't lie, this was a bit disappointing because this was supposed to be the ending of Sonic Frontiers being remade, made into something more satisfying. And after all of the criticism that I've dropped in this unscripted review, surprisingly, the ending was pretty good. After all of the pain I went through to finish this update, I surprisingly got a good conclusion to Sonic Frontiers, and in my opinion, is the better ending. Granted, the final boss is not perfect. Like, there was one part where you had to side-loop a gun, and there is nothing on screen telling you to do that, so I don't know. Mechanically, it's not the best, but thematically, it was fantastic. And the final phase of the boss fight was amazing. Like, honestly, I enjoyed myself a lot with this final boss. I thought it was epic when Sonic went to his new super form and then went overboard on the power and caused himself to be this cybernetic Super Sonic, only for him to just effortlessly destroy the moon, and that was fantastic. It's the best part of the update, and I'm glad they actually delivered on this front because, you know, at the end of the day, I think it was worth it. I think it was worth me playing through this update even though I didn't like it that much to get to this ending. This ending was very valuable, and I do think it is a great ending. However, with that said, as a conclusion to this unscripted review, I still find myself enjoying the original ending more than this update. In terms of story and the final boss, I do think that Update 3 is the better ending to Sonic Frontiers. However, if I'm ever replaying this game, I am not playing this update. I'm going to play the base game of Uranos Island, and that's because I think it's a lot more simple, I think it's a lot more fun, and while I do think the base game is a bit disappointing on Uranos, I do think it's a bit more faithful to the game than it was in this update. Anyways, that's all I really have to say for this unscripted review, so if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell. I know that Update 3 is going to be a bit divisive amongst the community, so if you guys want to see more videos discussing Update 3, just let me know, and I'll see what I can do. Anyways, I love you guys, I'll see you very soon, peace out. My chill members are Snack Pigeon, Neil, Scully, AHS, Francis T218, Sonic Man 715, 3monic, ArcherXYZ, Pie Studios, Bananas, Junion Rings, Chip Chap Chop, The Squeaker Nerd, Super Shax Boom, and Super Saiyan Sonic. Thank you all for supporting my chill. Make sure to click one of the in-card screen videos here. Love you guys. Peace out.